All right, so today we get to sit here with a legendary figure in Parks and Recreation here in Maryland. Athlete, recreation professional, historic figure in our state. Al Hondo Handy is here today. So Hondo, thank you for coming. Thank you for spending time with me today on this Sunday.
Thank you, Chris, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. You know, I love recreation and parks. I've been in it for 39 years and 3 months before I retired. So anytime I get a chance to come back to a facility to walk through it, and of course, if I get a chance to see one of my fellow students, as you are, you and your sister, and of course your parents, of course your dad was a longtime coach of mine. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So we're going to be talking about your book, Defying Expectations, today.
Okay.
But before we get started, we're going to touch a little bit about your background, what led you to get into recreation, what led you to into athletics, and just a little bit about yourself.
Well, you know, when I was young, I enjoyed watching my Uncle Monroe and Ralph play basketball. I was so little that I could just sit there all day on a Saturday. I was intrigued by the game of basketball. There were no adjustable baskets or anything like that for me to make one, because so I could only dream about making a basket. Then it was my brother Ronald Mitchell, who played for an all-black high school, Worcester High School, and my aunt Helen, who I called Haha, because I could not pronounce her name correctly. As a young kid, would take me to see him play basketball, and I just wanted to be like him. And that was the main reason I enjoyed basketball. But when it came to the other sports, such as football and soccer and baseball, I followed after my cousins, Larry and John, we called Junie. But first, Chris, I loved running. I just would run all over the place. And but once I got my hands on that basketball, that was my sport, and I stayed with it.
Good. So take us back to the Eastern Shore. Take us back to Stephen Decatur, Berlin, Maryland, both of our hometowns.
Right. And
tell us about your experiences, like what was going on back when you were attending elementary school, and what was that time with sports like?
Well, Chris, you know, I grew up in a town called Bishop, Maryland. It wasn't much bigger than a postage stamp, but it's where I grew up. And you know, my mother endured the hardships of the Jim Crow laws. No going in the front doors of restaurants, no using public restrooms, or drinking from water fountains. And of course, I endured some of that myself, having to go around the back doors at the restaurants to get a platter of food for my mother. And but my mother still encouraged me to be the best that I could be. I can still hear right now. Don't give up on your dreams to be a better person. And I remember a story that she told me, which was when her and my Aunt Helen, are called Haha, went shopping. They came home to prepare dinner, and one of them said to the other, "Where's Hondo?" They rushed out to the car, and they could only see that a 3-year-old had devoured all the blueberries that they had purchased. You know, Chris, back then, I guess it was during the time of segregation. And I guess they didn't have many child labor laws back then, because families took their, especially mothers, took their entire families to the blueberry field. I mean, I had friends that were, you know, went to school with me. They were there with their mothers and everything. And we would pick blueberries all day long in the sun without didn't even think about sunscreen. And then when it rained, you know, we would rush to these open shelters and until the rain stopped, and go back out there to the muddy fields with our wet clothes and our purple cake shoes from the blueberries. But I loved it. You know, it was a chance for me to make a little bit of money and to eat all the blueberries that I could eat. And then, you know, once I got a little older and started thinking about sports, I got a chance to go to Flower Street Elementary School. And, you know, back then, all my friends that I had dirt courts, dirt basketball courts. Chris, we literally would go into the woods, chop down a tree, bring that tree back out to our yard, find a board to nail it to the tree, find a rim if we could find one, and nail that to the backboard. Or we used a basket or a cut-out milk carton. And then our next challenge was to dig a hole deep enough so that basket wouldn't fall on our heads when we shot a basket. But you know, at Flyer Street Elementary School, we didn't have PE class. We only had recess, and all we did each recess was run against each other. And of course, the girls always won. I couldn't understand it, but they were the best athletes in our class. And they had a program called the Patrolman Program. There were officers, and my friends Oliver Purnell and Ron Dixon, we were the lieutenants. And in the 6th grade, the captains were Milton Purnell and Sherwood Purnell. And I always say, remember those names, because once we got to Steve Decatur, before we went to Steve Decatur, we received information that said, in the next few years, all the schools in our county were going to be integrated. So here's your opportunity to go to Steve Decatur High School, which was an all-white school. Most of my class that was there with us went on to Worcester High School, which was the only black high school in our county. And I think my family felt that I was going to follow in their footsteps because our entire family went to Worcester High School. But I chose a different path. And along with my friends, Oliver and Ron, decided to go to Steve Decatur, and making us the first 6 African Americans to attend the school. Chris, you see, I was influenced by my cousin Larry Waples, who was the first African American to go to Steve Decatur the year before, all by himself. And once we got there, we had to make some changes, and they had to make some adjustments. But we were kind of taken and led by the basketball coach, Ward Lambert. He knew we liked sports, and we had never been into a school where there were sports. We were too young, and back then the classes were 7th grade to 12th grade. So we could not play any sports, but we could become managers. So from the 7th grade and 8th grade, we were managers. Sometimes they tried to find us a little game to play against another school, but really to go out for the team, you had to be in the 9th grade, the way it is today. By the 9th grade, we made the JV team, and the 10th grade, our team actually was pretty good. We went to the state championship, representing Steve Decatur, first time in history. And we got killed by a team from this area called Fairmount Heights. We got smoked. But we vowed to go back the next year and make up for our mistakes and win. The following year, we did return and played in the championship game again. We beat Frederick High School. And the reason why I said remember those names, we were 5 patrolmen from our elementary school, and we were the starting 5 for that state championship game.
Man, that really came full circle.
Yeah, it came full circle. So we were kind of like leaders in elementary school and leaders in high school.
And so when it came to sports, what role do you feel like? Did you feel like that improved going through like the desegregation of Decatur, or do you feel like that made it a little more challenging for you?
Well, as I said, they had to make some adjustments, and the good thing about sports, when we got there, the very first friends that we had were the basketball players. So you can imagine a 7th grader walking down the hall with a 12th grader. So the guys on the basketball team would kind of escort us to class all the time, so we felt safe, and I could see the kids and walking in the hall like, why is that 7th grader walking with that big 11th or 12th grader? And we felt safe. They said, don't worry about those guys. And eventually the students started to come around because we became a little popular. Man, this guy, he knows everybody, So there were times it was a little hard, but for the most part, it was a good transition. And of course, we were going to a school that was still segregated. I'll be honest with you. Our information said in the next few years the school was going to be integrated. Our school did not get officially integrated, although kids were coming voluntarily to the school. Our school didn't officially get integrated until we were in the 12th grade.
Yeah.
So,
Oh my gosh.
yes, but
And what
great experience.
and just for everybody like listening in, and what year was 12th grade for you?
1971. So yes, it was. That was I mentioned the all-black high school in the county. That school was not closed until 1971.
Wow.
Now students could, it was closed after the year of 1970. Then students could come, and it was integrated in 71. So students from Worcester did come to Stephen Decatur then.
So just to put that in perspective, my very first year of Stephen Decatur was 1999. Which is not much, it's not in the grand scheme of things, that is not a lot longer, not that far away. So to hear that you went through all of that and your experiences to get to where you are and to win a state championship, just going through all that is remarkable.
Yes, I mean, when the students from Worcester High came, they weren't used to some of the things that we were used to at that time. So we kind of were like an advisory to the guys, don't do that, don't do this, don't get mad because of that. So we kind of, the principal really trusted our basketball team.
Oh, nice.
So we were like an extension of the office. I mean, we had been there so long, and we know how things ran, and we try to hone everybody in.
Yeah. So what I know you as is I know you as a basketball coach.
Right.
I know you from having a pretty good jump shot from what I remember. So I got to ask you this. How did you get involved in soccer?
Well, as I mentioned when I first came in, that we did not have any of those sports like some of the schools now have. They have a 5th grade team and a 6th grade team. Well, we had no sports. I mean, there were no little league teams that we could play in. There was no travel basketball. There was no summer leagues, none. We only played in our community the entire summer. And even when we were playing on the team, the school was closed, and we back to playing on the dirt courts all summer long. Right. But soccer came once I saw that they did have a soccer team, and I'm like, oh man, I think I could do that. So I went up for the soccer team, and I ended up making it, played a few years, and my senior year ended up being the most valuable player.
Yeah.
Although I was a basketball player at this height, when I was coming up, even though when I was in 7th and 8th grade, they said, you can play basketball now, but you're too short, just like, when I was coming up when I was coming up, we didn't have the greatest living conditions, no indoor plumbing, only a pump in the front yard that we had to pump the water. And when we pumped the water, my mother would have to boil the water. If not, it turned orange and would stain the clothes that we wore. So I wanted to, and then, because a lot of people defy success from where you came from, what you had, and where you lived. And I wanted to defy those expectations. And then when it came to basketball, I wanted to prove them wrong, because although I was short, I wanted to be able to use my speed and my quickness to prove them wrong and go ahead and make the team, because they were saying, you might make the team, but you're not going to be successful at any of the sports of soccer, baseball. I love baseball. I played baseball too and ran track. I just wanted to prove them wrong.
All right. So
I had a strong-willed coach, Coach Ward Lambert, pushed me in the right direction. As a 7th and 8th grader, as managers, we needed that. Yeah. Because we did not, when we got there and they had those great basketball courts, the first time in our life that we walked on a real basketball court. Man. First time. And he would take a few minutes out before each practice and do a little training with us. He says, here's a line, here's a line. You go down and try to shoot a layup, and you go down and try to rebound. And then when it came to me, he would say, up, rebounding line, you don't have to go down there because Hondo's going to dribble that ball down there so fast and put it up so hard that it's going to bounce all the way back here to half court. And that's what it would do. I could not figure out how to lay the ball up soft. It went as fast as I was running. Bang, all the way back. Next. And then he was telling me so we had a lot to learn. I had a lot to learn from basketball. He would say, dribble that ball as fast as you can, Hondo, down to the end of the court and back. Well, I would dribble as fast as I could, but I would run past the ball. In other words, when I got to the line, the ball would be back here because I couldn't figure out how to get the ball up here. So those 7th and 8th grade was a lot of hard work, and I had a lot to learn, and so did my friends.
Gotcha. So, all right, so you went from playing on a dirt court, you went to winning the state championship, and you went on to have a pretty good collegiate career as well. So what made you decide to go to Salisbury State College at that time?
Well, remember when I told you that we went to the state championship in our sophomore year, and we lost by like 40 points. I don't know what it was. I came back and I said, man, how can I improve myself and try and be a starter on that team, because I was not a starter. In fact, I was on the JV and pulled up at the end of the season. Mm-hmm. And I said, man, I got to do better and get myself better if I want to make the team next year, because there were 8 returning starters, I believe. And so I decided to try and find as I mentioned before, no summer camps, no leagues, no play. I wanted to find a camp. I found a camp. I was in Villanova. It was a Villanova basketball camp. The coach at the time was Mr. Kraft. And we went, my friend Robert Mumford and I went up to Villanova's, Jack Kraft. I went up to Villanova, and we had a great summer and played really well. And actually my team won the camp championship for that week and a half, and won my first trophy. It was this big. Actually, it was this big. First trophy of my life. I was so excited, and before the camp was over, I got my first offer to play college basketball.
Yeah.
Now, I always look at my wife when I tell this story, because Coach wanted me to play for his college. It was in Elmira, New York, Elmira College. And I still, to this day, do not know why I didn't take that offer. But I was so young, and I didn't go to the camp to get a scholarship. I went to try to get myself improved, and he gave me 2 years to accept the offer. Now, Elmira College was an all-girls school. But in 2 years, it was going to go become co-ed. Mm-hmm. And he wanted me to be there when it started. And I didn't accept, as I mentioned, I don't know why I didn't accept it, just because of the ratio of the ladies that were. But I get back to my senior year, and I was named the Athlete of the Year, and I guest speaker. When we won that state championship, Salisbury State College came calling, took my coach away, and I was a junior, and he went and coached at Salisbury State College. So it's my senior year, had a different coach. And we also went to the state championship, but we lost again. So, but for our senior awards banquet, Coach Lambert was the guest speaker, and he said a lot of great things about me. And, one of the things was that Hondo is a kid that wanted something bad enough and went for it, and became a top-notch basketball player. And after he gave that speech, I just said to myself, I want to play at Salisbury. I just had to have the determination and devotion and hard work to make the team. And just before I turned down that offer at Elmira College, I called Coach Lambert and I asked him, I said, Coach, do you think I could play basketball at Salisbury? And he just simply said, Hondo, if you think you can, you can. If you think you can, you can. I remember those things, That's what I have at the top of my book. If you think you can, you can. So that's why I ended up at Salisbury, and I went there to play basketball. However, I became the first African American to play baseball there.
Wow.
And I also followed up with the legendary coach Ben Maggs and played soccer. And you know, I thought I was in high school at the time playing all these sports. between the fall, soccer and basketball, I ran indoor track.
Yeah.
So kids don't do that anymore, but that's probably why I can't hardly walk today. So that's how I ended up at Salisbury.
Okay, all right. So while at Salisbury, what piqued your interest about working in Parks and Recreation?
Well, it really didn't happen that I went out searching for Parks and Recreation. I was a physical education major. I wanted to be like my coach. And he was a basketball coach, and he was a PE teacher, and he was a mentor to me. And the baseball coach, I mentioned baseball, I became much better in baseball than basketball in college. And after my junior year, my assistant baseball coach, Mike McGlinchey, said, "Hondo, this looks like your sport. You're doing so good. I want you to play this summer in the Wilmington, Pennsylvania Baseball League." So I had to go to, spend the summer. I said, wait a minute, and I work in Ocean City all summer. Okay. Well, you need to find a job up there and play baseball in this league because there's a lot of ex-professionals there, good scouts there. You need to be playing there. So I went there and lived in Philadelphia that year with cousin Ronald Mitchell. So I would take the train twice a week, Tuesday and Thursday, down to Wilmington, and my sister Diana Mitchell would pick me up, take me to the game or practice, and then put me back on the train, and I'd go back to Philadelphia because that's where I was working, got a job. And so I get back to college after playing baseball that summer, and the first day I get there, we drive, up on the campus and towards my dorm, and my dorm is on the first floor, and I see some of my friends. You know how it is in college. See some of my friends out there, and they're playing basketball. And I'm like, God, I gotta get out there. I gotta get out there. I opened my window, and we were on the first floor, of course, of our dorm. I opened my window and said, "Ma, just throw my stuff right in this window. I'll get it when I come back." I put my shoes on and ran down the hall, out the back door, and I waited to get in the game and saw them come by and waving. Of course, no cell phones back then. And someone let me in the game. I went down once, came back the next time, and went to put a basket shot up. We were playing on an outdoor basketball court, asphalt. Somebody undercut me, and the first thing that landed was my bent knee, straight on asphalt, breaking my kneecap in half. So I was done for the whole season after playing all summer long baseball. I was done with all sports.
Yeah.
So, when one door shuts, my knee's hurting now. I'm just thinking about that experience. When one door opens, another shuts, another opens, and I became a student intramural director for the college, working under Mr. Grady Arnstar, and I started to learn a lot of stuff, and he was teaching me things. So intramurals are almost like recreation. And I kind of like that because you don't learn those things as a PE major. You don't learn it's not a part of your major. And I started learning that a little bit. And, it still wasn't to the top of my brain of, hey, maybe you could do this. I learned the flag football and the softball. The students had teams on campus. And but when I graduated from Salisbury, I still had a little small job. It was at UPS, United Parcel Service, downtown in Salisbury. And so I graduated on a Friday, and everyone's looking for jobs that just graduated. But a lot of the athletes had these UPS jobs part-time. So we were making like $14, $15. We were like rich on campus, So I'm running down to UPS, and I go to the gate, and the guy says, "Where are you going?" I says, "I'm going to work. We got to be there at 6:30. 6:30 in the morning, 10:30 we're done, then you go back to classes if you're still in school." He said, "Oh, you work here?" I said, "Yes." He says, "Grab one of those signs over there. We're on strike." I said, "Strike? I just graduated from college. I don't even, what are we on strike for? Don't worry about it. Just keep marching." you get paid on Friday. I'm like, okay. So I'm gonna get paid anyway. So I'm marching. He said, "You get a chance to go over there that trail, the van, and take a break." I said, "Okay, sounds good to me." He said, "On Friday, you go down to North Salisbury Boulevard and pick up your check." I went down there and picked my check up. Guys were standing in line and moving up, get my check. Finally got my check, and I said, "Let me look at it." As I'm walking back to my car and I opened it up, $25. I said, "I've been paying union fees all year, and you're gonna pay me $25 for marching?" And they weren't finished. They weren't finished. I'm like, you know what? Can't do that today. Go and cash that check and and fill your gas tank up, because it won't fill it up. But my buddy was telling me to come up to Harford County because they looked like there was a lot of teaching positions up there. So I filled my little car up, drove up to Harford County, and ended up getting some substituting jobs. And I got kind of a long-term substituting job at Edgewood Elementary School. And one day I walked in there, and there's a note on the door, on the bulletin board that says, "Harford County Parks and Recs is looking for a youth league basketball director." I'm like, I can do that. I can do that. And you know, that might get my foot in the door for next year for a full-time PE teaching job. So I did direct job and got to meet a lot of kids and parents, and then I helped out during the summer a little bit, and you know, and I got a chance to come back home, and you know, it just fell in my lap. Ocean City Recreation Parks. You know, that kind of, I had just gotten the itch for that. But before I went to Ocean City Rec Department, when I was looking, I had the itch for recreation, and I started a little recreation program right at the school that I went to fly at elementary school. And I had kids come in that didn't have to pay anything. I had a lot of things going on with them. Then I started a summer youth basketball league, the first one ever in Berlin. It's called the Berlin Municipal Youth Basketball Team, a league. We ended up with 8 teams. I had 8 businesses sponsoring it. The town of Berlin played for our insurance, and it was a really cool thing for the kids to do during the summer. And I had gotten the itch, and then I got this job at Ocean City Rec Department. I ran that league for about 6 years, and then I got too busy down in Ocean City. I couldn't do it anymore. So 40 years later, I'm retired. I'll tell you my life story, Chris.
No, that's good. That's what we want to hear. It's
Right,
that's why we're here today. So, Ocean City Recreation. So, what was Ocean City Recreation like when you started it? Because as a kid, I went through the Ocean City Recreation programs, and it was pretty big back then. So, when you started it, I would imagine that it probably was not on the same scale as it is right now.
Well, you know, when I first started, Chris, I worked with the Parks Division of the Recreation and Parks, knowing and hoping that one day a position on the recreation side was going to be open. And it did open up, and I was so happy. But when I first started, I always tell people that we worked out the back door of City Hall. That's where our recreation department, you know, City Hall on 3rd Street, if anybody goes to Ocean City and rides by there, it was at one time a school. You know, the first floor was elementary school, the second floor was high school. And, you know, many years later, they closed it and decided that after a number of directors came through, that it was a good place to offer recreation. So it was a very small gymnasium, and but it was only the only thing Ocean City had. It was real good. It was not regulated, but it was good for that school. You know, and that's where we started. Very few programs. They were all based at 3rd and 4th Street, and we had, you know, some fields over to Ocean City Elementary School, and that's where the majority of our kids came from. And you know, when I first started, I remember our assistant director saying, it's when I learned to think out the box, and probably came from when I was in Harford County. He says, "We don't have enough kids for the youth basketball league, so we're going to cancel it." I'm like, my favorite sport, you're going to cancel it? So I convinced him, along with some other co-workers, to let us go over to elementary school and do a little presentation to the kids and see if we could get them to sign up, because he was just waiting for them to walk through the door and sign up. there's a flyer, here's a flyer. That didn't motivate him, I guess. But so we went over and took a little portable basketball goal over it and did the Ocean City Globetrotters. Oh, we had the music on. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, we were doing all these fancy tricks, and the kids were cheering us. And the next week, the basketball league filled up. So I think they even had a waiting list. So I was like, this is what recreation's all about. But I still wasn't convinced about what recreation was really about, because once they got all the kids registered, my assistant director said, well, Hondo, we need you to be a referee. We need referees. I'm like, okay. So, of course, coming from a competitive, atmosphere, I was calling all the traditional problems on the court, such as traveling with the ball and walking and double dribbling and jumping up and down without shooting it. And the kids were hating me. They're like, what is this guy? His kid said, what are you calling? I said, well, you took 2 steps before you dribbled. He says, they normally let us have 3 steps. I'm like, oh. So I had to learn all of the rules, You get a rebound, I had to farm the other team. They had to fall all the way back to half court before they could play defense. And they couldn't stop the kids from throwing the ball in from out of bounds. Back up, let them throw it in, now you can play. All these rules I just wasn't used to. I had to get used to them. And then at the end of the season, our assistant director again said, Hondo, we want you to be the all-star basketball coach for the 10 to 12-year-olds. Yeah. I said, oh, no. These kids don't even like me. They hate me, matter of fact. He said, well, we just have parents, fathers. They don't know a lot about basketball, but they really want you to be the coach. And I thought about it for a little while because I just started. And I'm going to tell my supervisor, no. I said, wait a minute. Maybe I shouldn't tell him no. So I took that job and said I'd be the coach. And I did some things that you probably cannot do today. Chris, don't do this. You might be out the door. I thought I was Red Auerbach in the Boston Celtics. I closed City Hall doors. I told the parents, look, I got to teach these kids different rules, and you can't be in here. I locked the gym doors for 2 weeks after school. We were practicing. When one of the rules they had in our league is you get a ball, as I mentioned before, you fall back. Well, in this tournament, it was at the Salvation Army, if you got a rebound, the other team's going to try to take it right out of your hand and put it right back up. So I had to train them about that, and, I thought I had them going really good. I even tried to put a little press in. They had never pressed because they're always falling back when the other team gets the ball. Yeah. So I thought I had them good, and they were excited, and we had this old Army bus in our parking lot that was for the rec department. We got all these hand-me-down things, It was old. Our assistant director said, Hondo, I want you to drive those kids over to Salvation Army and drive them directly back. No stopping. I'm like, I can do that. Well, we got our uniform. They were so excited, and we got on the bus, and the parents were going to drive over. He wanted them to go over as a team. So we get into gymnasium at the Salvation Army and walking in. I gave him I gave him the final, remarks before we got off the bus, and how we're going to play. Remember, you got to do this, or they'll take the ball away. We got 4 timeouts, I think, but we'll find out when we get there. So we walk inside, and I knew it was over because our gymnasium was this big, and that gymnasium is as big as this room here. And they were just looking at, oh my God, look at this place. This place is gigantic. Oh my God. And one kid said, yeah, and the baskets are higher too. I said, no, they're not higher. That's just the basket. They got a lot of space behind them. It look higher. No, they're higher, yeah. I said, let's go. Got them to the sideline. We started doing our little warm-ups, right? And one kid said, oh, man, this is the team we're playing, Salisbury. I said, yeah, they always give us Salisbury. And when the Salisbury team came in, they said, oh, my God, those kids cannot be 10 to 12-year-olds. One guy has a mustache. This guy, no way. I said, look, we only have 4 teams in Ocean City. So we had to pick 3 kids, regardless of size, from 4 teams to make 12. Those guys probably had 12 teams and picked the best, the tallest, and the best kid on each team. They didn't understand it. And no, because I saw that guy, I think he had some car keys. I think he drove here. I said, no, they wouldn't allow that. So we were getting ready for the game, and this is, the referees came over and said, you do have 4 timeouts a game. When the clock stops, when the whistle blows, the clock stops. He gave us all these things. And when we played, when we played, the clock ran the whole time. You remember that? So we start to play it. We have trouble bringing the ball up, and I called timeout. And I'm like, look, remember, they're going to take the ball out of your hand. Went right back out there and got a rebound. The kid took the ball in. Like, what's this guy doing? I said, this is a different rule. Anyway, I used up all my timeouts in the first quarter. I had no more timeouts for the entire game. So I went to the referee. I said, look, in our league, we're losing really bad. It's the first quarter. In our league, if you're losing bad like this, you just let the clock run. And he says, oh, no, coach. The whistle stops. We blow the whistle, the clock stops. Oh, my goodness. So I said, I got a remedy for this. I said, look, guys, we got 12 players on our team. When I tell you to foul, I want you to foul because they were huffing and puffing. I want you to foul so you can get a break. The kid says, oh, no, coach, I'm not going to foul out. I said, you're not going to foul out. We got 12 kids. Each one of you do one foul. Now the kid says, I'm not going to foul out either. So we go out there and we play and we really get crushed. And I hate to ask you this, Chris, but I will ask you what you think the score was.
I would say, like, they didn't break 100 on you, did they?
I will let you guess.
If they broke 100 on you, I'll say like 105-78 or something like that.
The final score was 108-8.
8 points?
We lost by 100 points. And the parents were mad with me. The kids were crying. I could hear the parents behind me. I thought this guy knew how to coach. This guy's terrible. I'm like, man, I'm going to lose my job. I know I am. So we get on the bus, and, the kids are crying, So we get on the bus, and we start backing out and heading towards Ocean City. And one of the kids finally speaks up because the rest were crying. It's, Coach, has anybody ever lost by 100 points? I'm like, I don't think so. I'm steady driving. He says, you think we broke a record? I said, we probably did break a record. And he turned around and said, guess what? Hey, we broke a record. We did? Yeah, we broke a record. And those kids start singing. Hey, we broke a record. Hey, we broke a record. Oh my God, they were pulling the windows down, saying, we broke a record, singing it out. I'm like, oh my God. And one kid said, Coach, can we go to McDonald's? I was like, I would get fired anyway. We zip into McDonald's and we get the food and we get back on the bus and we get back to Ocean City and I see the parents standing there with their hands on the hips like this. I'm like, and they get off singing, hey, we broke a record. Hey, we broke a record. They said, Hondo, what did you do to these kids to make them feel so great? I said, I don't know. All I know is they broke a record. That's the day that I knew what recreation was about. The game was over, and they were on to the next thing. I said, this is what recreation is all about. I had to come down from my competitiveness to recreation, and that's what I learned that day, what recreation was all about.
Man, that is a great story. I mean, even with the loss, it's still a great story.
Look, it's so bad. It was so bad, but we still shook hands. We still displayed good sportsmanship. Chris, on my first time out, we still went over and shook those guys' hands. And after that, there was an article in a major newspaper, sports newspaper, that was written about that game. And if you Google, give Hondo a hand, you'll see that story. Made national magazine.
Well, the good thing about hearing that story also is that when I played on the Ocean City All-Star team and we went up to play against Salisbury at the Salvation Army, we said all the same things about those kids. I saw that guy driving. He just dropped this kid off at daycare.
Well, I don't understand how we used to go over. Be 10 teams in the tournament, and Ocean City would always draw Salisbury.
Yeah.
And we'd always lose. I mean, not very many times that our team ever won. But, yeah, they grow bigger over there.
Yeah.
And they had so many kids playing.
Yeah.
And we didn't, We didn't.
Man, so that was so that's a moment that defined your experience in recreation, just that you got blown out, but the kids were still happy, so that is just what is another, what thing, going forward, what established just that bug for you? Because that was pretty early on, so what continued that? You had a 40-year career in recreation, so.
Well, I understood that, when I first started that, a lot of people were coming to Ocean City and they had their own rules. So someone that came from this area here, someone from Baltimore and someone from DC, and they moved to Ocean City and they played by different rules. So, and a lot of times they were very competitive. So we had to establish some rules that were recreation for them to go by, and a lot of them didn't like it because that's not the way they used to do it in their area. As a matter of fact, I had 2 baseball coaches almost getting to a fight. And I was my first night out there. I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. Little League Baseball. And man, they were nose to nose. I said, I had to walk one to the parking lot. Can you please stay here? I'll come back and talk to you. And, got the other calm down. And I get to the rec center the next morning. I said, went to my director and said, can I speak to you a second? He said, sure, come on in. I said, look, we almost had a fight last night. I know the 2 rec coaches are nose to nose and, you're getting red about pulling our fists together about the fight. I said, we need to do something about that. He said, oh, man, that's awful. What are you going to do about it? I was like, I thought I would come to you to get there. I said, he said, isn't that your program? I said, yes, sir. He said, well, you're gonna have to find something to do, you're gonna have to find a solution. I come in and I research, and I found this program called the National Alliance for Youth Sports. That back then it was titled, it was named Youth Coaches Association. And, I joined that and came back to all my coaches and said, I need to get all you coaches certified. What do you mean certified? I've been coaching for 20 years. And I said, well, we want to take you through a program to make you better and get everybody on the same, level. And then they didn't like that. And none of them wanted to do it at first. I said, look, it's a voluntary thing. I hope you would do it. It would help better our league. And no, we don't want to do it. So believe it or not, I talked to one of the, coming in, I'm coaching, my coaches were businessmen, judges, lawyers, and I'm just little Honda trying to tell them what to do. So I convinced one of the top judges in our area, Judge Dale Catholic. I said, Judge, you got to help me. I got to get this done. I mean, it's going to help me. He's like, okay, Honda. Judge Catholic did it, and then all the other coaches started coming around. Mm. And then they started learning about what sportsmanship was and why you do sportsmanship and, why you shake hands all the time and why you don't holler at other coaches, what you should be doing to kids when you're out on the field, how you should be acting, what you should be prepared for, not just coming out there and, doing your own thing. Let's do it as a group. and that helped me get through my entire. And I was in that program for over almost 35 years, and it's still at Ocean City today.
Yeah.
So that means you cannot come to Ocean City and coach any sports without getting certified, and that includes background checks. And if you fail the background checks, you know, you would tell them at the first meetings, you're all going through my certification programs. You're all getting your background checks. And if you don't think you're going to pass, say something to me at the end of the meeting, and we'll discuss it. But some people didn't do that. And then here comes the background checks, the police sending their things in. I'm like, I got to call Chris. I'm sorry, you can't coach. What? You knew you had this bad background.
Yeah.
You knew you had these things. I gave you the stipulations so you could read. If you were a part of this the last 5 years, this happened to you, you can't coach. And you still went through the process. Don't get mad at me, But it was a hard thing to do because, but it was good because now the community knew that we were doing the right thing for their kids, and when they leave their kids in our hands and the coaches' hands, they knew we were looking out for them.
All right. So tell me a little bit about one of the reasons that we wanted to invite you up here to the City of Takoma Park Recreation was because it is Good Sportsmanship Month.
Yes.
So tell us about how that whole celebration started, how you architected that, and how you got it off the ground.
Well, it's like a great thing for the entire state of Maryland. March is Good Sportsmanship in Maryland for all the rec departments. Some people still celebrate at different times, but as a whole, they know that, and such as Takoma Park, the March is Good Sportsmanship Month. Well, I was sitting in my office one day, and I looking at things like kids were the most valuable players in this and the most valuable players in that. I'm like, man, how about the kids that show all this good sportsmanship, but they never get recognized? And we don't talk about it very much. So I had an idea, and I reached out to representatives, and one of our who's a senator now, Mary Beth Carroza, said, "Hondo, that's a great idea. Let's try it." And she was part of our rec departments when she was coming up, and she's still a senator today. And so we went up and testified at the state capitol, and I gave them all these reasons why we should, and and I brought a couple of my friends, some from across the bridge, so they would know it wasn't just Ocean City, and they testified, and it came down to, we at the first month we chose was February because that's really when Ocean City was doing theirs. So I said, well, if we could get that passed, this just makes ours much bigger. Since we're already in February, so I chose February. They're like, no, that's Black History Month. I don't think we should do it in February. No, come back next year. We're like, oh, God, never thought about that. So we get come back, and we did all the things they tell us to do, and we moved to March, move it away from Black History Month. And we go back, and they're like, we got so many things going on. I don't think we should do it. So come back next year, maybe we can do it. So the third year we go, I got 38 representatives signed on to the bill. I said, this is it, we're gonna pass. And they said, no, I don't think we should do it. Now, the next year, I'm about to retire, right? And I get a call from Susan Pertito, who is the director now. And she says, guess what, Hondo? I said, what? I'm holding the proclamation that's been signed by Governor Hogan that says March is Good Sportsmanship Month.
Yeah.
I'm like, I cannot believe it. And I was so happy because she gave me the opportunity to come back and make that announcement in front of MRPA, Maryland Recreation and Parks Association, at their annual meeting, and tell them the same story I told you, and then here it is, and we finally got it passed, and now everybody in the state is abiding by that. So we hope our new governor could work and keep that going.
All right. All right, so we're going to close with something a little bit more fun here.
Uh-oh.
So I'm going to ask you some questions. It's going to be kind of quick.
Uh-oh.
And just say the first thing that pops into your mind.
Oh, boy.
All right, so
All right.
So first question, what made you write a book?
Well, I wanted to write a book to pass on to the children from our family things that I went through, the challenges that I faced, and I wanted also to tell them about their family from the past and to educate them about where they actually came from. And I wanted to try to encourage everyone that was associated with me through recreation and parks and all over the state of Maryland to think about following their dreams and not to let anyone or anything stand in their way or be discouraged. But at the same time, realizing that dreams can change. And that's okay. See, because the first dreams you choose may not fit. But the one thing you can't afford to do is quit.
Good. All right, get a little more fun here. Favorite sports team?
My favorite sports team is Golden State.
Oh.
Golden State. I love the Ravens, but they're having a little problems right now, so I'm going with Golden State at
All right,
time.
Golden State's a good one. Favorite food?
Man, Regina, what's my favorite food? Blueberries.
Blueberry. Favorite memory from Salisbury State?
My favorite memory from Salisbury State, I would say playing baseball down south and getting a winning hit, I think against Fayetteville State, I believe it was, and getting home, and the headlines reads, Little Al comes in handy. So embarrassing. So embarrassing in college. But that's one of the favorite memories that I had in college.
Favorite place to eat in Ocean City?
Oh, you're going to get me in trouble here. I cannot give you that. And the reason why I can't give that to you, because so many businesses and restaurants helped me during my 40 years in Ocean City, and I would get hammered as soon as I get back, or maybe even before I get out of here and my phone ringing.
What do you like to do in your spare time?
Play golf.
All right, it's a good
With
one.
your father.
Yeah, he needs to work on that drive, but he can't outdrive me, but he can do everything else better.
He says he can.
Yeah.
That's true. He says he can.
All right, so in closing, I personally wanted to thank you for everything that you've done for me personally. So just to touch base on this, I followed a similar path to you. Like a lot of people may not know this. Went to Decatur, went to Salisbury for a little bit.
Right.
Got into, actually at Salisbury, I was a physical education major. Mm-hmm. Transferred schools, got into geosciences for some reason. Don't ask me why. And then it came time to actually figure out what I wanted to do. And one of the memories that always stuck in my head was you working down at the rec. I had never seen you have a bad day ever. And it made me want to get into recreation myself because I was like, Hondo's always happy every time I seen him, you know. And we were good kids, but we were knuckleheads also at the time. And you had to come talk to us a couple of times, but like I just never seen you not happy. And I saw how many people came up and how many people you helped. Like you noticed that stuff as a kid, you know? Right. And it made me want to get into recreation. So I ended up going to school for recreation because of you.
Well, I appreciate
you know, and I got into working in parks and recreation because of you, because I saw you do all this good stuff and I wanted to do some of the good stuff. So I wanted to thank you for that.
Well, Chris, I wanted to add a couple of things. You're not by yourself. It's been about 13 or 14 other kids that said they wanted to become Hondo and they majored in rec and parks. Yeah. I wanted to add one more thing, and I forgot to mention that when I got to Stephen Decatur High School, which is the all-white school, After a few days of kind of making the adjustments, see, I was coming from a school with all black teachers, and now I'm going to a school with all white teachers. So I started to have some doubts. So, and then when I walked down the hall and everybody seemed so tall, you know, I seemed a little bit lost. So I got my nerves up one morning and said to my mother, Mom, I'm not sure I made the right decision. She said, well, I'm not sure I made the right decision to go to Decatur. But you know, my mother never asked me why. Without hesitation, she said, do you remember when you brought that paper home and I asked you if you were sure that you wanted to go to Decatur? I said, yes, I remember. She says, well, son, you made a commitment to that school and you must honor that commitment. And I said, okay. She said, well, your lunch is over there on the table. I'll see you tonight. And you know, we never had that conversation again, but I can see her right now, standing in that front door as I left on that bus each morning. And she later told me that she cried for the first 3 months and prayed every day for my safe return each evening. I guess that's when kids used to listen to the parents back then. Because I could only say, okay. And I guess that's why I never stopped working for the town of Ocean City's Recreation Department, because I had a sense of commitment. 40 years later.
Yeah, well, thank you for everything you've done for everybody.
Thank you.
You know, we all appreciate it. We're all grateful that, you know, we got to cross paths with you. And we wish you the best continued success with everything you got going on.
Well, I appreciate it. Got a lot going on. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
All right.